Hello and welcome to lesson 2 of week 12. In this lesson, we are going to look at how to create and configure our server. My name is Mildred. In the last lesson, we introduced Amazon Web Service. We created our account and we looked at how to put multi-factor authentication using the IAM service, the Identity and Access Management service. We have said that we are not going into the detail of security, as this is not a cloud computing course, but we're going to do basic security for us to be able to build our servers and deploy our application on the web server. We are going to be looking at Elastic Cloud Compute, EC2 in Amazon, and it is one of Amazon's oldest services. It is just a server on which we will configure and host our software systems. And with EC2, we can access as many high performance systems as we can afford, but we want to keep everything within the free tier service. And so what I'll do is go to services, or you can just type in the search bar EC2, and then we get EC2 here, and then we are going to start creating our servers. Now, for those of you who are new to Amazon Web Service, if you look at instances, you will have nothing here, but I have one because I have an instance that was created, but it has been stopped. The instance is just a server. But what we want to do is to create new instance and see how to configure instances. You want to take note of your resources and also look at what is running, because one thing you want to do while you practice is always turn off or shut down unused resources so that you don't get billed or you don't forget them in the future. We also have these different regions of resources. You want to also keep your resources within the same region so that you don't forget to turn them off, because if you put them across different regions, for some resources you will only see resources running in the particular region that you have selected, and so you don't want to incur unnecessary bills as we keep track. We want to create a new instance. We can come here to say a launch instance like this. The first thing you want to do is to provide a name for the instance, and I want to say this name is, let's say, a class project as my instance name. Take note of the name that you have specified, because you're going to need it when you want to SSH into the server to configure it. We want to select an Amazon machine image to use an Ubuntu, so we're going to select Ubuntu. This automatically selected the free tier eligible one, which is the Ubuntu Server 24.04. Always make sure that you're selecting things that are under free tier, except if you want your card to be built or you want to be charged. But while we practice, the free tier eligible services are enough for what we need to learn. Here you want to select the architecture, leaving it as x86. You can change whatever you want here, but I'll leave it as it is here. Then the instance type, we select T2 micro. I leave it as T2 micro because this is also free tier eligible. I'll also generate key pairs, because this is what you will use to be able to SSH into this server from your local machine. And so when you select create new pair, you need to be able to download and save this key on a directory on your system. So give the key a name. I want to give it as class project, so I'll give the key the name class project. So take note of the key name and the directory where you want it saved. So when I put this, I'll create key pair. I want to save it on the desktop as class project. Let me come to my desktop and I'll save it as class project. I saved it as a .pem file, .pem. So take note of your file extension. Now I have that file saved there on the desktop. I will refer to it later. I want to create security group, and for this security group you want to allow SSH traffic, either just from your local machine, which is more secure, or from anywhere in case you run into problems and you want us to help you troubleshoot what your problem is. So you can also always do it either from anywhere or from your local machine. You want to allow HTTP and HTTPS traffic from anywhere. When you have the IP address that has the 0.0.0, it just means you're allowing from anywhere. This captures your IP, and you can also allow just SSH traffic from your IP if you choose to. Okay, so in real life or your real world project, you want to be very careful about your security settings. It's not going to be settings that you will just allow anything from anywhere or unnecessarily. So once to configure the storage, we just leave the default configuration as it is. It is enough for what we want to do, and we want just one instance. We just leave everything the way it is, and we just click on launch instance here. Just wait a few seconds and this instance will be launched successfully. And so when we come to instances here, we don't have it running yet. Once it is fully configured, we have it here, class project instance. It is pending. We want it to write running before we can say that we can SSH into this. So wait for it until it becomes running before we go further. So let's see, to take a little while, and because it's running, we can select this and go to, just take a look around the details down here. And in the details, we want to see the public IP DNS name. What is more important is this address. So click on open address. It will open a new tab. Go to the address bar and make sure this is not HTTPS but HTTP. You leave it open. It's not secured. Continue to site. We have this site cannot be reached. What we want to do is to install an Apache web server, and we want to be able to see the message it works on this page to be sure that our installation of our web server has gone through. So we have that open. You are going to be opening the address of the public IPv4 DNS. Now you can take a look at all what you have here, and their different names and what they mean, what each of them mean. We can either get the command line and go to start writing SSH, use the I flag, specify the location of the PEM file, and then we want the link of the public IPv4 DNS. Or we can just select it here and then click on connect, and then we'll look at example here and copy this example, and then head over to our command line, open this. I want to seed into my desktop, and the reason is I don't want to have the problem of trying to navigate to the directory where my .pem file resides when I want to make reference to it. And then I'll paste this example I copied here, SSH my PEM file is class projects.pem. Because I'm already in the directory desktop, it already knows that the file is located here, so I don't need to specify any directories and forward slashes. And then Ubuntu at EC2, the same my public IPv4 DNS address here. When I do enter, I might have an error, and the error might just be about unprotected key file error. I put yes, and I have the unprotected private key file. Now when we do this, the permission 644 is to open, and one of the first thing you want to do is to change the permission such that we grant only the file owner and the user read permission. And how we do this is to do chmod, and we change this to 400. So 400 is the permission we need, and we want to change the file permission of the PEM file to 400, and it is called class project.pem. So we're changing the permission of this file so that it only has read, the file owner and the user has read permission. So when we do this, there's nothing magical, no error message. Once it just gives you the next line to type in, we'll repeat the SSH into the server. This time it should go through and we should be in the server. So what you want to see is to see that you are successfully logged into the server. We can see welcome to Ubuntu 24.04. We are now on this server and on this page. What we want to do is to start at the end install our software so that they can be available on the web, and we can give the IP a nice name later on to have a website just like you see facebook.com instead of saying these cryptic numbers, or you see school.mildredgroup.com instead of these numbers. So we can have a domain name for these IPs. If you have a domain already, you can create a subdomain and link your IP to it. So we'll go back to our command line now, and we are successfully in the server. We want to start installing stuff. So the first thing we want to do here is to update everything, and the command is sudo apt update, like this, and this is going to update everything that needs to be updated. It will take a few seconds, and we wait for it to completely update, and then we want to upgrade and also do a distribution upgrade, the upgrade of the distribution file. So let's say sudo apt upgrade. Yes, so to just take a few seconds, and once it's done, it will give you the new line for you to be able to type in the next command. The next thing we'll type in is to get a distribution upgrade for this. So now that is done, we can do sudo apt dist upgrade, and everything is in order. So once this is done, we want to install Apache web server. We'll do sudo apt install. Let's install Apache 2. Yes. So you keep reading the on-screen instruction. If you need to put yes or no, you will type whatever is asked. So once you're doing this installation, you don't walk away from the screen. You need to be there to give it a response to whatever question that is asked while you install. So now we want to look at uncomplicated firewall, which is the front end for IP tables. And what this will do is to provide an easy configuration for our host-based firewall. And before we do that, we want to make sure that the firewall allows Apache, OpenSSH, HTTP, HTTPS, SSH, and then we enable the firewall. And we'll do that like sudo. So we can just allow everything at once, like sudo ufw allow in Apache full, like this. And then it does that. You see rule updated, and we can do it individually, like say sudo ufw allow. We want to allow OpenSSH, we want to allow HTTP, we want to allow HTTPS, we want to allow SSH. So you can do them individually like that, and you allow all of the ports or all of the service you want to go through the firewall, and then you do sudo ufw enable. If you enable firewall before you allow SSH or HTTP or HTTPS connection, you'll be locked out of the system on your next restart. So the firewall is now active and enabled, and so once we restart, this firewall takes effect. So we've installed Apache 2. We want to refresh this to see if we'll see the it works message. So it works now means that our web server Apache has been installed. The next thing we're going to do later on in part 3 is to configure our vhost and everything we need to configure to put our software there. We're going to create keys and our public key between our system and the server, between the server and GitHub, and create the CI/CD pipeline where we only just pull and push, or on push you want it to trigger an upload to the system. And so these are the things that we are going to look at. This is just the basic way we want to create our project and the project repository before we continue with this configuration. So make sure that your .pem file is in a location where you can go back and SSH back into this server, and we are going to be using this server and configuring this server going forward. We can also install MySQL because we are going to be having a database like we looked at in last week's lessons. We need to create a database, and our database we created, maternity records, need to exist on our server for all our tables to be created here. So let's say sudo, let's install MariaDB server first, and then we'll install MySQL. So let's say sudo apt install MariaDB server. Now while we install this, there'll be several questions coming up. We'll just use the Y flag to automatically answer yes to all the questions. And this is going to install MariaDB server. MariaDB is just like the free version of MySQL. For our use case, we won't really see the difference between MariaDB and MySQL. Now we want to do the MySQL secure installation. MySQL secure installation like this, and enter current password for root. Now this is the problem, because we do not have a password for root. We put enter, and if you have a password set and you can't remember it, then you begin to have a problem here. You will need to purge or flush. But because when we don't have a root password yet, we've never set a password, so it asks if you to switch to unique socket authentication. Let's say yes, and change root password, we'll say yes. Now we want to set a password for root, and so let's set our password. You put a password that you can remember. You will need this password to configure your database connection on using Python when we start the configuration for it to be able to connect. So let me put a password here and re-enter password to confirm, and then want to remove anonymous users. We want to allow remote login for now. When we finish our configuration, we're going to disallow remote login and create other users so that we don't use root login anymore. We want to remove the test database and access to it, and then we want to reload the privileges table, and then now it says thanks for using MariaDB. If we want to see if this works, we can type MySQL u, and the user is root, and p option. It will ask us for the password we set, and if it all is well, we have the MySQL shell to type MySQL command. Now recall that we looked in week 10 how to use all of this. We say show databases for us to see all the databases here. So it's show databases, we have all the database there. We can create a new database. We'll say create database, and our database is maternity records, like this. And then if we do show databases again, we'll see that we have maternity records here. And for us to start using this database, we can just say use maternity records, like this. So this is how we configure our cloud server. We have Apache running here. We do not have the software installed, and so we are not going to configure the different files that we need to configure for the index page not to show this default page. By default, when you use Ubuntu, the web directory is going to be, so let's exit out of this. The web directory is going to be in the var www.html. So you always seed into var www.html, and when you list here, you see this index page that shows this, it works. And this is where we are going to clone our project when we have it on GitHub. So this is where we end this lesson. In the next lesson, we are going to try to look at how to understand software project specification and the design patterns, and then we're going to start talking in detail about our project. Thank you, and see you in the next lesson.